Hey everybody, it's me, Calvin Benson. And Bambi the Reckoning is finally here. This movie is the new entry into the Poohniverse, aka the Twisted Childhood Universe. I have been following these movies ever since the first Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, and all the way back before the first movie even came out, the creative team behind it announced multiple other movies in a similar style and story, one being a Bambi horror movie. It's been in development for 3 years, with me following its development the whole journey, even making a video about it. But finally, it hit the big screen in late July, and this was worth the wait. For a small rundown on what this movie even is, all the way back in 2022, the original Winnie the Pooh book was released into the public domain after 95 years, making Winnie the Pooh a public domain character. Anyone could now use Winnie the Pooh in any way they wanted. So, obviously, one of the first things to be made were projects that Disney would never make, like horror movies. So, indie film studio Jagged Edge Productions, known for micro-budget, straight-to-VOD movies, decided to take a crack at it, and began production on a horror twist on Winnie the Pooh titled Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. The trailer for the movie went viral, mostly from people hating on it before even seeing the movie, but it still went viral. So viral that they were able to make a deal with movie theaters to get the film released in theaters for one day. And I was one of the lucky few to get to see it on the big screen, to which I came out genuinely adoring it. Not in a so bad it's good way, but for real. Now if you want to know why I love this film so much, back when it came out, I made a review of it, which you can find in the description. But to sum it up, the story is fantastic. And it's really creative. The pacing is excellent, the cinematography is really great, so is the soundtrack, and sure, the acting and the costumes for Pooh and Friends aren't great, but they give the film such charm. It's just a perfect little movie for me, that went far above what I expected of it. Now, for others, it's a different story. People hated the movie, but they still saw it. And the movie made bank. Like, a whole heck of a lot of money. Over 100 times the movie's budget, making over $5 million in its one-day theatrical window. It was the biggest indie horror smash hit since the Blair Witch Project. And the creative team behind the film knew this concept had real potential. So much potential that it was worth exploring in many new films. Winnie the Pooh was just the start. Disney has built up a library of iconic characters, where most of them are in the public domain for anyone to use. And adapting these stories in a new genre, in a new and creative twist that these stories have never seen before, proved to be a very successful way to tell stories, both financially and in terms of making good, unique movies, even if pretty much everybody hates them for some reason. But despite the backlash, the creative team at Jagged Edge Productions began work on a cinematic universe, which they've dubbed the Twisted Childhood Universe, announcing movies ranging from Blood and Honey sequels to all sorts of new fairy tale adaptations, and alongside many other projects they had announced, one of them stuck out to me. Bambi the Reckoning, a horror adaptation of Bambi. Now that seemed really interesting, more so than others, and that is mainly because, for one, Bambi already features more dark and scary moments. The most iconic scene from the movie is Bambi's mother being shot and killed as Bambi runs away into the dark, and the scene near the end where hunters massacre a ton of animals. That traumatized so many 3-year-olds. So the Bambi story already featured more scary elements, or at least scary for Disney. the movie already had the foundation of horror to build off of, which gave this movie so much more potential than some of the other films in the TCU. This was the movie I was looking forward to the most out of all of them. And man, did they take their time making it. It was announced in November 2022, when I sounded like this.
And what do you know? A week later, we get the announcement of a Bambi horror movie. This is insane. I'm honestly surprised they're going all in on these movies.
Yeah. And years went by. Blood and Honey 2 released, with a trailer for Bambi the Reckoning playing in front of it. Peter Pan Neverland Nightmare came out, and still, no sign of Bambi. That was until they finally released it on July 25th. After 3 years, I had high expectations. The actual potential for it to be something great was huge, and the creative people of the TCU have been consistently improving the overall quality of their films, learning more and more with each one. I got to see it in theaters when it released, so what do I think? It's weaker than the Blood and Honey films, but is still a fantastic movie. There's of course flaws, like with the pacing, but what this movie gets right, they knock out of the park. This is easily one of the best films this team has made. They made this movie feel so much more cinematic. They continue to build up the scale of the films, getting closer and closer to looking less like an indie film and more like a big budget horror spectacle. And they lean into the horror genre, but also the actual Bambi story. It's directed so well, shot so well, the CGI is great. This is simply a great movie. First of all, the biggest concern I had going into the movie was how they would visually handle Bambi himself. Because unlike Winnie the Pooh, Bambi isn't anthropomorphic. They can't just have a dude in a deer mask walking around. They have to make an actual big killer deer. But these movies don't exactly have the biggest budgets. Even with the much higher quality of the CG in Blood and Honey 2, and this film's much higher budget, I was still a bit worried as to how it would look, and if it would just not be good-looking CGI. But holy shit, I am blown away at how good Bambi really looked throughout the whole movie. There was never really a moment where I went, well, that was a bit wonky, or that animation is a bit static. No, they really do great. The design of him is super well crafted. He's so disfigured and twisted, no pun intended. His spine is jutting out of his back, his antlers are bending all over the place, his teeth are sharp and jagged, and he's absolutely massive, feeling like a towering beast. And he's also just so well detailed. The fur moves in the wind. They have the little bumps on the nose, the little twitching of the ears. You can even see him breathing, and watch his chest expand. They make Bambi feel like a living, breathing animal. I like the little details they give, like how Bambi always clops his hoof on the ground twice before running, like a little startup thing. It's those types of details that build a character. Now, for another thing I noticed about the movie, is it looks really good. Like, they must have spent half the budget on the camera, 'cause this film looks so cinematic. They have some great shots, especially the ones at night. Bambi is shot at night in a way that makes him blend in with the forest itself, and that adds a layer of fear, where a static shot of trees could have Bambi standing in it, or the darkness has Bambi silently watching his prey. The moonlight is the only illumination, which makes for some great shots. They also include great variation in shots. There's some wide shots, some panning or tilting, day and night. It's great cinematography, and it is shot especially well with the kills. Something very important with a horror movie, but especially this one, the kills. And they're cool, but kinda underwhelming. Some are just dumb, although there's some standouts, like that kid falling into a bear trap and Thumper and the rest of the bunnies eating him. It's well shot and it looks cool. But there's one super obvious kill that is so clearly a perfect kill for this movie that they just didn't do. Weird tangent, but this is a concept I had since this movie was announced, and I wish they did it. Have a character be running, stops running, takes a break, says some cheesy line like, "I think we lost him," and then a stabbing sound. The camera tilts down to reveal an antler poking out of his stomach. Bambi had ran head down towards him and stabbed him from behind. And then Bambi lifts his head with this guy still impaled on the antlers, and now he's just hanging on, blood dripping onto Bambi's face. And he then roars in victory and shakes the guy off his antlers. Come on, that is the coolest shit. And they didn't do it. The kills they do have just kinda don't make sense, or aren't clear on how the person even died. Like the lady cut in half. They don't even show how she got sliced, and his antlers are definitely not sharp enough to completely clean slice a full woman in half. And later, the dude taking a piss is clean decapitated, which also doesn't really make sense. Maybe Bambi just quickly bit his head off, but that's a big stretch. But those kills may be intentionally goofy, and to be crazy, because this film does have some comedic moments. Something I don't think people give these movies much credit for is the comedy. Not unintentional comedy, but the intentional comedy. They know that pretty much everybody thinks their movies are bad. They know these are absolutely ridiculous ideas, and they have fun with it, and have some goofy-ass scenes. Like when Bambi uses his hoof to try to open the bathroom door, and he actually does. Slowly opening the door, and then running in. Like, come on. Or the dude tied to the RV, and is just pulled along, with everyone else oblivious to him, and he's being dragged on the road for so long that he just dies. Like, they know what they're doing, and I like it. And as for the transition of the Bambi story into their horror style, it goes over spectacularly, turning the death of Bambi's mom into the motivation for why Bambi is killing all people he sees is a clear route to take the story, and they do exactly that. It also takes place in a deep forest full of animals, a setting that invokes the same setting from the original story, but of course, with their own scary twist. I love how they incorporated Thumper as well. It's a great little bit. This whole pack of bunny rabbits that just pile onto people and tear them apart, with Thumper being rabid and deformed just like Bambi. It's almost like they're Bambi's friends and are helping him out, which is so cute to imagine. It's great bringing in the wider elements of the Bambi story, and they changed them up for them to be scary. But they didn't even need to make that many big changes. The thing is, these classic fairy tale stories were already, at their core, basically horror stories. In the original Little Mermaid, Ariel kills the prince and drains his blood to perform a ritual to turn the blood into a new fishtail. In Snow White, the queen eats the heart she thinks is Snow White's to steal her beauty. In The Three Piggies and the Big Bad Wolf, the piggies boil the wolf alive and eat him raw. My point is that these stories always had horror elements to them, but Disney reshaped them to be more mass marketable and clean. But this twisted childhood universe, instead, takes those bits of horror from these stories and just goes even farther with it. That's what's so great about these, is that it's taking a core element of these original stories and just saying, what if we just go crazy and push these stories to the most extreme horror angle, and it's just the coolest thing. They build on the ideas of the basic Bambi story, obviously twisting it a ton to build it into a horror story with gruesome kills, but still having the big broad strokes, the big story beats, the meaning of the story, and the characters, while also having their own original story, and a new overarching theme that ties the movie together. They expand on an idea brought up in Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2, which is the destruction of forests and deforestation. In that film, Pooh and the gang didn't even want to go into the town. They just lived out in the woods, away from people. But it's because of the world closing in on them, destroying the forests, and pushing them into humanity. They just said, might as well get revenge now that we're here. That idea of deforestation is again brought up, with humans expanding so much in the forest that Bambi lives in, and people descending upon them, with hunters killing his mom, and the forest flatteners destroying his home. Which is why he has such a driving force to kill any sign of humanity he sees. Bambi himself represents all the different things hurting forests. His mom being killed by hunters represents people slaughtering animals in forests, like with hunters just killing them for sport. And there's Bambi's wife, who's killed by deforestation workers, which represents deforestation and the destruction of forests, not only killing the earth, but the animals living in it. And with the radioactive waste, which is what turns Bambi into this monster in the first place. That represents the companies who just dump their waste and trash into the forest, thinking of the woods as their dumping ground. Each of these themes add together to create a greater idea that ties together this film and the Blood and Honey films. The idea that one day the animals fight back. After all this torture, destruction, deforestation, they get revenge. It's an awesome idea, which they didn't even need to do, but they go above and beyond what people just expected this movie to be, by crafting a story that both works as a horror take on Bambi, but also has something to say about forests in modern day, not as a small side point, but as the driving force of the movie. They do those higher themes, but still keep the fun of it. I love this movie. And I love the people that make these kinds of movies, because they truly care about these stories. About making fun, about making good scares, about making cool themes, and they truly care about just simply making a good movie. Overall, Bambi the Reckoning, while flawed, is great. And it raises the bar in VFX, cinematography, pacing, and scale for the Twisted Childhood universe as a whole. Speaking of which, the next Twisted Childhood universe films slated to come out are Pinocchio Unstrung, with the actor behind Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund, playing Jiminy Cricket, and the Poohniverse, a big crossover of all the characters featuring Bambi from this movie being rode by Winnie the Pooh swinging a bear trap as a lasso. This is gonna be peak cinema. But what did you think? They really upped the bar of quality, so I wonder if people like this movie more so than the previous. Maybe there's other people who like these films as much as me. If you want, tell me in the comments. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you in the next video of this year's Spooptober celebration, my annual October Halloween video extravaganza. hopefully you'll stick around. But at least for this video, thank you for watching.